Interesting. When I look at the programs on Kaieteur News online, done by Glenn especially, I'm seeing they talk a lot about production sharing agreement and royalties and a good or bad deal. It's just a lot of the talk. And rightfully so. It's important when you sort of spend so long in the industry. Do you? I mean, it sort of made the song like we're being ripped off by a bad deal. And you can interpret however you want. I'm not saying it's one way or the other, but doing an investigation when what do you think is the responsibility? Like, I mean, to me it feels like we're in this gray area where one government started as oil and gas began, another government took over, and we're still dealing with issues, but at the end of the day, Guyana is still the public is kind of screwed, for lack of a better word. And there's a lot of talk about, Exxon taking advantage or these big companies taking advantage. Who is to blame for like Guyana's sort of position in this, or how we would benefit or not? Is it mostly government or is it corporations? Like, how do you sort of, because if there's so much antagonism towards these groups of people who are making the deal on our behalf, who do we blame, for, and I know it's not a black or white thing where you just point fingers and say, oh, it's this person's fault or that person's fault. But how do you reconcile the two in that regard? Or is it just that you report whatever is available and you let the public decide through just factual reporting?
Wow, that's a multifaceted question. So I'll take the last part first. What Kaieteur News hasn't ever to do where the contract is concerned is to explain what is our take from it. So what does the contract offer? It offers a 2% royalty. Then it offers a 50-50 split of profit oil. And profit oil has to do, or it describes the oil that remains after you've allowed the company to clear off a portion of its expenses for a period of time. So what's left after they've given you their royalty and they've taken out expenses, that's what you split 50-50. So if it's 10 barrels that's left, 5 for you, 5 for me. So in addition to that, we do get some taxes here and there. Now, what we have done is to say is a 2% royalty, a 50-50 split of profit oil, and a few taxes. Is this fair? How do we ascertain if it's fair? We've asked several experts, regionally as well as internationally, and they all agree the contract is low. It's on the low end. It's on the very low end, and I'm being
Sure.
very, very, very kind here. It's on the very low end when it comes to giving a country what it deserves, because at the end of the day, those terms were created during a time when Guyana had already discovered oil, not before. So you knew that you have oil, but yet you had a very meager take that you were generous in giving the benefits, the lion's share of the benefits, to the contractor. So in addition to confirming this with regional and international experts on the subject, we also did our digging, which is why I explained to you we started out in the beginning of comparing it with all the contracts that we could possibly find. And even though one might argue that there were some instances where maybe you can compare the PSA to, let's say, those in the US or, those of Indonesia, which is considered the grandfather of production sharing agreements.
But because you're dealing with a country with no experience,
Yes.
essentially.
There were many instances where we found that even when you do a side by side comparison, countries were asking for way more than we were. And they did not even have the resource base that we had at the time. So that confirmed to us, or that allowed us to put a convincing, an irrefutably convincing case before the masses to say, we did not get what we deserve. Now, we did not get what we deserve, and who's to blame for that? Now, you had a very experienced company, one of the largest publicly traded companies in the world, negotiating with a country that has never done this type of negotiation at such scale. One can argue and say, you know what, the government was the government at the time was in over its head. It could have employed more experts. It could have done this. It could have done that. Yes, it's responsible for a lopsided agreement that we have. Is all lost? No. So what can we do now? Which is to claw back value. And there's some people at one side of the country who's saying, claw back value through direct renegotiation. Let's go back to the table. We have enough resources to say, okay, you know what? We deserve to get more than 2%. Then there's another side of the country that's saying, no, we cannot go through with direct renegotiation because we need to respect sanctity of contracts. Guyana cannot be seen as a country that just undoes contracts because
Bad business.
it's not good for business, it's not good for investments, it's not good for the country's reputation. It's not the type of reputation Guyana wants on the international market, especially now that it's part of the global oil players club.
Yeah.
So
It could kind of mess up other industries as well.
yes. So you have, and that side of the room is also saying, look, let's claw back value by doing other indirect things, such as the creation of a gas to energy strategy, such as a local content legislation, such as a petroleum activities law that increases the benefits for Guyana on future contracts, not on the existing, not on doing the ones that already exist. And the argument, the themes between the two that I see is both sides want more benefits for the country, but each is saying, I want this vehicle to do it this way, and another one is saying, no, I want to do it that way. My job as a journalist is to put both sides to the public, to say, this is what we can get through direct negotiations. These are the benefits, these are the pros and cons, and this is what the government is saying. And it's up for the public to decide. It's not up to me to be judge, jury, and execution and say, this is the perspective that you must take.